Too hot for TV.
Welcome back to Doctor Who, Too Hot for TV. We are the podcast that looks at all things Doctor Who Extended Universe. This week, I'm joined by someone who's been here before, but not for a Doctor Who episode. It's David Gillespie-Pratt. David, how are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm wonderful. It's great to have you here in the official main universe, not one of the splinter universes of Too Hot for TV.
I know. The last time we were here, we were discussing the genius that is the Blake 7 radio adventures, which was an experience.
It was. We had a great time, but I promised to get you back for some Doctor Who, and here we are. So why don't you tell everybody the two things you've chosen to talk about today before we get going?
So the two stories I decided to have a bit of a chat about are two Big Finish stories. So it's Intelligence for War, which is a Third Doctor adventure, and Fugitive of the Daleks, which is a First Doctor adventure, both of which being the recast Big Finish adventures as well.
Yeah, I mean, so a lot to cover on those, I'm sure. But before we jump into those, last time you were here, I asked you how you became a Blake 7 fan. Now I need to know how you became a Doctor Who fan.
It's a very similar story. I'm a man of a certain age. I am in my early 40s. I am a child of the wilderness years almost completely. I came to Doctor Who, I watched it in 87, 88, but it was something that I kind of paid attention to, but not much. I became a fan sort of starting the 92 repeats. I think there's so many of us that came into Doctor Who through those repeats, but that was still a casual viewer. The bit I became a fan was Planet of the Daleks in 93. It was those short 5-minute pieces before the stories that really just grabbed my attention. And as I have said before elsewhere, and it comes as probably no surprise to people, the one that got my attention, and I always going to say is the moment I became a fan, was the 5 minutes on missing episodes before episode 3 of Planet of the Daleks.
That says so much about you and what I know about you right there.
It's all there. It was just something about, it was in black and white. There was all these clips. It was all very dramatic. There was Ian Levine making a fist because he was so angry. But something about that just got my attention. And I think, that's the point. Doctor Who just grabbed me and didn't let go. And 93, it was 30th anniversary. There was Dimensions in Time. There was the Radio Times special, which I still have, even though it's barely one piece. And 30 Years in the TARDIS, which was just, discovering it for the first time, all these clips, all these things. So it kind of just grabbed me at that point. And then I just started getting the videos for Christmas, started collecting, and I just started absorbing Doctor Who. In the first couple of years, if I could get hold of a video or a UK gold recording of friends, I would have got it. So it kind of grabbed me at that point and didn't really let go. And through the 90s, Doctor Who magazine, the videos, started buying the cassettes, missing episode soundtracks, obviously, but also Paradise of Death and Ghosts of Endspace. Those tapes I played to death, just over and over. I would go on holiday for 2 weeks. I had like 3 cassettes and I would just play them in a loop. Paradise of Death may be flawed, but I know that story back to bloody front.
I am exactly the same. Paradise of Death, Macra Terror, Power of the Daleks, Fury from the Deep. Those early cassettes, they went with me everywhere. Every time we went on holiday, the family would be sat there in Tenerife doing whatever they were doing around the pool, and I was just, I'll sit in this corner and listen to the Paradise of Death. Thank you very much.
I was probably in Tenerife doing exactly the same thing at the same point. I could never find Macroterra, and I was always disappointed. That was the only one of the missing soundtracks. I could never got Tomb of the Cybermen because I had it on video by that point. But yeah, Macroterra was one I didn't hear for years, and then I've Colin Baker's wonderfully bizarre narration with Jamie tossing restlessly, which is just fantastic for all the wrong reasons.
Well, restless tossing aside, what's your relationship like with Doctor Who spin-off media then and now?
Oh, so spin-off media, it was the back covers of Doctor Who magazine that sort of teased this world of spin-off media, because it was back in the mid-90s, and there would be these videos advertised, Probe and Air Zone Solution, and it's like, what are these things? And they were so I was in a group in Newcastle, and in the Virgin Megastore that had a huge video selection, they actually had quite a few of these tapes. So at some point, the first one I ever bought was Downtime, because the magazine had bigged it up.
Yeah.
And it's like, this sounds very exciting because, it's got proper Doctor Who actors in it. It's a sequel. It sounded all very exciting. So I went and bought Downtime. And I spent about 90 minutes trying to convince myself it was good. Because it's Doctor Who, but it's really cheap.
So even then, you noticed the difference, did you, between, say, Doctor Who now or Doctor Who of the past and Downtime?
Yes, and it was the same when Auton came out, and I actually think Auton is pretty bloody good. But the fact that they build a bit of scientific equipment out of Meccano, but they then try to explain it away by somebody saying, I can't believe you built it out of Meccano. It's like, you really are pointing out how cheap and how no money you've got in this. And I think one of the real giveaways, on the video I had of Auton, at the end of it, they had like some interviews with the cast, and they would talk about the making of, and they would say, yes, it's a sequel to these 2 Doctor Who stories, but could they get photos from those stories? Could they get clips? No, but they had the video, which they put in front of the camera going, yes, that, and so there was just those little giveaways that these didn't have a huge amount of money. And try watch, and there's a lot to like, and I've watched some of them more recently, and I think I can appreciate them more now for what they were trying to do. But at the time, I do look back and I think I was convincing myself that these were greater. I showed them to my best friend, who was a Doctor Who fan at the time. He was kind of moving out of it, and it was like, no, we've got these new videos, and he was just thoroughly unconvinced. And
that's what drove him away completely.
I think it was that, and his basically his interest in girls as well, because they were much more interesting than watching Deborah Watling emoting.
Nothing is more interesting than watching Deborah Watling emote.
It's a performance. It's a memorable performance. We're still talking about it 30 years later. So she did something right.
Yeah. And so what about nowadays? Are you a big Finnish fiend? Do you pop in and out? Do you read comics, anything like that?
I still have my kind of expanded universe fix. With Big Finish, I was one of those fans that was there from, if not day one, but sort of day two, because I bought Oh No It Isn't and Beyond the Sun. They got added into the cassette rotor by 98, and they were fantastic. I mean, Doctor Who magazine, again, they were doing their job. They were promoting these spin-offs and convinced me enough to give it a try. And Oh No It Isn't is still one of the best things Big Finish has ever done, because they set their stall out on day one, and it's a really bloody good story. I like Beyond the Sun. It's not as good, but there's a lot of really good things in that. And I think from that point on, I became a regular Big Finish buyer. I wouldn't say I bought everything, because I was young, I was a teenager, and I had no money. And there's only so many times I can go to my parents and look sad, saying, "Buy me this CD," because I'm really sad. And so I probably had, when the CDs came out for Doctor Who, and that was such a big deal as well, because it's like, it's not coming back. It was 99, I think it was announced. Doctor Who was dead, as far as we're concerned. The TV movie had come and gone. Doctor Who magazine had pretty much given up. They every now and again they might go, "Ooh, it might be coming back," but it just felt different from the early 90s. It was like, this is it. So when they're saying we're bringing them back, full cast adventures, the original cast, that was just really exciting. So
the original cast, eh?
the original cast. and I'm fairly
More
sure.
of that later.
I'm fairly sure somebody said there was a CD that came with Doctor Who magazine doing the preview. I'm fairly certain somebody addressed recasting in that, saying,
Gary Russell said he'd never do it.
yes, that I thought it was Gary Russell, but I couldn't find the CD to check it. So it was interesting that was their kind of their stance from day one was, we're not recasting.
And to be fair, Gary Russell never did do that.
He didn't, and somebody else did, and more on that later. And I stuck with it for a long time. And I was getting ready for this podcast, I've been kind of thinking, how long was I really regular buy of Big Finish? And it was for a very long time. But there was a point where it waned. And it was not long after the pandemic, they'd switched to the box sets, and it just felt that the emphasis shifted. It was all box sets. There was a lot of very random combinations of characters.
I don't know what you mean.
But there was a point, and I wish I could remember which box set it was. I think it might have been one of the Fourth Doctor ones, which was fine. But I just remember listening to one of those stories, and I just thought, didn't mind that. I'm never going to listen to that again. And it's like, I've spent 30 quid on this. And that was starting to happen more and more often. It's like, there's nothing hugely wrong with these, but it's a lot of money for a one-off fine story.
Yeah.
And at that point, and then it was almost exclusively box sets. There was some interesting creative choices, and it became less essential. And so, apart from maybe picking up the odd bits and pieces in the sales, for the last 3 or 4 years, I've really have slipped out of the Big Finish groove until the last couple of months. Although not that I've been spending a fortune, but one of these two stories has kind of made me think, oh, there might be some good stuff out there still. Just got to be a bit more judicious about it before buying anything.
I think a lot of people feel like that, and I have a very similar story in that I heard pretty much everything they did for certainly the first decade, and now I'm a lot more picky. There was a point where I just sort of started going, well, I'm just consuming Doctor Who for the sake of consuming Doctor Who. And I think it's also fair to say there are a bunch of new fans who came in probably around the time that I walked away and are absolutely up for the version of Doctor Who that Big Finish are doing that perhaps isn't appealing to me. But there are still certain ranges and certain stories and things like that I will check out, and I still have a great time, and others, not so much. But I can usually tell, I would say within the first 15, 20 minutes of something, whether I'm going to like it, and I will turn them off now. I will be like, do you know what? I already know that this isn't for me. I think for the listeners' benefit, we should say that we've spoken about this offline, but we haven't told each other how we feel about the different stories. But there is one here that I really, really liked, and one here that I really, really didn't like. Are you in a similar category to me?
There was one I liked more than the other. So I've listened to both of these twice.
Right.
And I think I came out of listening to them again, my opinions revised downwards slightly. I think
right.
They didn't necessarily benefit from a re-listen, but definitely one of them away from, I'm trying not to give anything away, you see, not trying to do spoilers, but there is one that I think stood up less well to a re-listen. More on that when that story comes up. I think if you've heard both of the stories, you might be able to guess why I'm not saying too much more.
Well, it's interesting because, do you know what? Let's keep our powder dry. The first thing we're going to do is Intelligence for War, which is a Third Doctor Season 7 story. It was released on the 11th of October 2023 and recorded on the 13th and 15th of March 2023. It was written by Eddie Robson, directed by Nicholas Briggs, produced by Heather Challands, with music by Nicholas Briggs. Now, this is all fairly recent, and the next one we're doing is even more recent, but news at the time, Alex Pillay USA and Peter Hall were announced as directing the first season of Ncuti Gatwa's Doctor Who. The BBC confirmed that Neil Patrick Harris was indeed playing the Toymaker, and Doctor Who Unleashed was announced. From Big Finish, we also had the first series of the Eighth Doctor and Lucy Miller stories repackaged into a box set, because you know they love a box set. And we had Time Lord Immemorial with the Ninth Doctor and the David Warner Doctor, Rogues Gallery featuring the Paternoster Gang and the Eighth Doctor, Torchwood Odyssey and The Union featuring the Eighth Doctor, the Fourth Doctor, Susan and Riversong. You talked about those weird mashups of people there. From BBC Audio, we had the Third Doctor Monsters Collection, the Lagoon Monsters featuring the 10th Doctor and Martha, and then the audio novelisation of Evil of the Daleks, plus the Whoniverse launched on social media channels, and the comic strip was Liberation of the Daleks. So slap bang in the middle of Doctor Who's 60th anniversary.
It's quite a busy year, really.
Quite a busy month. Do you know what? I don't think I've heard that first run of Lucy Miller and Eighth Doctor ones, but that was a re-release. But apart from that, I don't think I've experienced any of the others there.
No, I don't think I have either. And there's some where it's like, I will probably never listen to that. There are people out there who enjoy things like the Paternoster Gang, and that's great. But nothing I ever saw on television made me go, wow, I want to see 20 episodes, or listen to 20 episodes of that with the Second Doctor popping up and everything. Yeah. It didn't grab me. But if there are people out there who enjoy these things,
I mean, there absolutely are. For me, they're great support characters, but I've got no interest in. I don't think there's anything you can do with them solo that would necessarily appeal to me. To me, I want them interacting with Matt Smith's Doctor or Peter Capaldi's. And obviously the launch of the Whoniverse was a big deal. Very exciting. I remember that happening, and we were like, all this stuff, and then realising I've already got all this stuff.
It was an interesting marketing thing, saying you can watch all of Doctor Who in one place, where a good chunk of the audience already has it.
Yeah.
But it's always fascinating when people get obsessed with, oh my goodness, they haven't got Seeds of Doom and Terror of the Zygons on there. It's like, but you own it, and you've got it on disc, and you've probably got ripped copies as well. But it's that wonderful thing. I mean, the Whoniverse, the attempt to go Marvel with its little logo and everything like that.
Love that. When I saw that logo, I thought, we have arrived. Disney have arrived. We're going to be bigger than Jesus. Anyway.
It's going well, isn't it?
I don't know what you mean.
Too hot for TV.
When a Nazi soldier appears in a village pub, the Doctor and Liz Shaw investigate, uncovering links to a shape-shifting alien tied to a weapons deal gone wrong. Liz is arrested by Pinpoint, a covert military group aiming to replace UNIT using stolen alien technology and psychic manipulation. But the Doctor rescues her, and they uncover a living alien weapons array called Sylvia, designed to fight an interstellar war. As Sylvia begins converting humans into soldiers, Liz's empathy convinces her to abandon the conflict, while Pinpoint's leader, Matthews, perishes trying to seize control. With the threat ended and Sylvia departing Earth to stop the war she was created for, Liz admits to leaking classified documents to expose the hidden danger, and the Doctor affirms it was the right thing to do, though both know the ideology behind Pinpoint may still linger.
Too hot for TV.
So why did you pick Intelligence for War?
Well, so as with everything, there's always a story behind anything. I always like to spin a yarn. I was one of those fans that when Big Finish started recasting major Doctor Who actors, I was kind of pearl clutching, how dare they, this is awful. And the thing is, this is one of the things I was actually doing before you came on. It's like, when did they start doing it? They obviously recast maybe the odd minor character, but it's like, when was the first Doctor or companion proper, not Companion Chronicles, not where the narrator's voice? And I think it was Tim Treloar in The Third Doctor Adventures back in 2015. There may well have been something else before that.
In the Lost Stories for the 60s, they're sort of part audio play, part narration. And the first one or two of the Tim Treloar box sets, it's still partly an audio book. So there is a narration but it's also sort of half an audio play to get people used to the idea. And apparently the feedback was just lose the audiobook bit. We just prefer Tim Trelaw playing the role.
And it felt like it was easing people into it, because
Yeah.
I remember when those stories started coming out, and to be fair, I didn't buy. I think I bought one. I bought the Primord set because Big Finish gave away first episodes, and it sounded interesting, and it was a John Dorney script as well, and you can't generally go wrong with a John Dorney script. So that's the only prior Third Doctor adventure set that I'd actually listened to quite a while ago, and it was fine. I quite enjoyed it, but not enough to make me go, "Ooh, I need to buy the rest of these." But I have sampled some of the other recasts, so Return of the Cybermen, the first of Once and Future, but I had a slight problem as I could not get past the fact that some of the actors were going for impressions rather than performance. And it's interesting, Big Finish have recast major parts in other ranges or in other series. So Sapphire and Steel, when they did that back in the early noughties, that was recast with David Warner and Susanna Harker.
Yeah.
They weren't trying to emulate the actors who played them before. They were doing it their own way. And a lot of the other series, the actors were given the scope to interpret the characters. They were never wildly departing from what had been seen before, but they were allowed to put their own stamp on it. Probably for me, the best example was the Avengers Lost episodes, where they recast Patrick Macnee, who is so established in the role of Steed, and it's almost inconceivable that you could have another actor play that part. When Julian Wadham did that, he wasn't doing a pastiche. He wasn't trying to sound the same. He played the role in his own way. It's not drastically different, but he's not going for an impression. And I think one of the key differences is, if you look at the cover art, those actors appear on the cover art for those sets.
Yeah.
Whereas in the Doctor Who stuff, it's the actors who are on television. So it kind of sets this idea that it's a Third Doctor story with Liz Shaw, but with John Pertwee and Caroline John on the cover, but it's not them. So it's that Doctor Who, I think, is the only range where they've done that.
Interestingly, again, the first Pertwee one they did, the Doctor was very much in silhouette. Do you remember?
He was, yes, he was, you're right. It kind of creates that disconnect. And there was just a couple of points with... it was in Return of the Cybermen with Sadie Miller as Sarah, where it felt she was trying really hard to sound like her mother, down to some of the breathy mannerisms and everything. And that just took me right out of it at times. It's like, I'm not listening to an actor giving a performance. I'm listening to someone giving a performance of another actor giving a performance. So I pretty much at that point just tuned out of the recasts, and they've done quite a few of them now. But I saw these stories were coming out. I would see fans reviewing some of these sets, and when Intelligence for War came out, it got really positive reviews from a lot of people, and I thought, am I missing out on something here? So when the opportunity came up to review something for this, I thought, okay, you know what? I'm going to give these recast stories a chance, because other fans are saying, no, they're really good. So I thought Intelligence for War, it had not long come out, sod it, let's just give it a go. And we're going to break away from the suspense here. I'm going to reveal. I quite enjoyed this one. I'm trying to judge your reactions here. It is very much going for that season 7 vibe. And re-listening to it this week, having just got the season 7 box set, it's interesting to see. In some ways, they have captured that season 7 vibe quite well. Does do some things that are not very original. So if I had £1 for every time we have a season 7 story with Liz Shaw, which deals with the, why does Liz Shaw leave Unit?
You'd have at least 20 quid.
You got at least 20 quid. And then Unit have a vault containing lots of hidden alien artifacts. So there's just a couple of plot points in there. You go, this has been done. This has been done before. But it gets off to a really nice start. The bit this story does, and I don't know if any of the other season 7 stories do it, they do the Ambassadors of Death title sting.
It is done on quite a few of them, yeah.
You see, I'm disappointed by that, because I like the idea that it might have been a one-off, but the fact that if they're doing it
I don't think it's all of them, but some of them do have it.
So They're clearly we're going for that season 7 vibe. And episode 1, nice start. You've got some mysterious goings on in English village. There's slight Doctor Who comic strip, elements to it because they drive down. There's investigations. There's Nazi soldiers going on, and then somebody's investigating Unit because they want to shut Unit down again. Not an entirely original story,
but I mean the Unit era in general was recycling these ideas. With the man from the Ministry shows up every other story to be really annoyed at what Unit are doing.
I think what really helped with this, with the brand new Doctor, brand new Liz, brand new Brigadier, and I think Tim Treloar and Daisy Ashford are actually quite good. I got used to it. I eventually managed to just ignore that voice in my head going, it's not right, it's not right. I think John Culshaw as the Brigadier is much more
an impersonation.
It's not a bad impersonation, but it's clearly, you could feel it being a performance. What I think helps in this one, because the previous one I listened to was Prime Mode, which had Katie Manning in it. It's really much less distracting not having an original actor who's in their 70s trying to sound like they're 19, and actually having a complete new cast was to its benefit. And the one thing, and this is something that came through on the second listen, this felt, for me anyway, a bit old school Big Finish. There's no massive, there's no returning characters. There's no bizarre mashup. There's no big named actors in the guest cast either. So there was just something about it. I thought, this feels like one of those older stories. It felt it was harking back to an older style. And it's more dialogue heavy. There's some cliffhangers that are dialogue based rather than, cacophony of sound, which was quite nice. So it's 7 episodes as well.
Yeah.
And that's clearly what they're going for with these season 7 stories. We're going for the full,
they're making
authentic.
A serial. Yeah.
They're making a serial. And it definitely starts better than it ends. I think the mystery in the village and these unknown attacks from Nazi soldiers and the other strange things going on, that's quite a nice mystery. Liz Shaw's arrested for treason and taken away. And there's a really nice... she's interrogated, and there's a sort of the interrogator and Liz kind of swap roles, and there's something going on. There's a nice mystery
like
building.
Prisoner at that point, doesn't it, as well?
Yeah. And so it does get off to a nice start, and it also captures the Doctor and Brigadier's relationship quite nicely. There's a nice degree of antagonism, but you can buy them as friends as well. I think where it starts to not fall apart, but where it starts to kind of come loose at the edges is when they start bringing in more of the guest cast. Because when I was doing my notes coming on, it's like, I can't remember what half of them are called.
And it doesn't help that most people are playing 2 parts as well. And I know they've tried to make them different. They'll have a main part and then there'll be just a voice in a scene. But it's the nature of the audio dramas they do at Big Finish that sometimes you're just a bit like, who are all these people?
And so that doesn't help. And it's like you've got one lady who's from outer space and the other one who's a living suitcase bomb weapon thing. And so the times the voices do tend to blend together, and you kind of say, well, you've got Glenda and you've got somebody else. But I really enjoyed this. I was quite surprised at how much I enjoyed this. It didn't, second time around, I think some of the plotting didn't hold up to a lot of scrutiny. When you listen to these things, probably the same when you watch the season 7 story for the first time, it's like, this is great, this is wonderful. As soon as you start to go, these events in episode 1, these things that happen in episode 1, don't really mesh entirely clearly with some of the stuff that happens in episode 7. So you could argue that they have gone for a very authentic season 7 vibe of having a story that doesn't quite add up.
I did another season 7 Big Finish recently on this, and I said they go so authentic that it's even 2 episodes too long, and I think that stands up here. I
think it is just that there's a little bit of, it's a little bit padded in the middle. There's a bit, I think Liz Shaw disguises herself up as her parallel universe counterpart at one point because she puts on, did she dye her wear a wig? And I just thought they missed a trick on the cover art by not having kind of the pudding bowled Warp 2 Liz Shaw just to kind of entice people in, because, you need something on the cover that's going to draw people in. Clearly, they're going for that political vibe. There's a lot of theme of weapons, artificial intelligence. There's definitely...
There's the student idealism as well of the
Yes.
lecturers' politics and stuff like that, which is something that Doctor Who tends to treat at the time quite naively as like, oh, you with these silly ideas, until you probably get to the Green Death, I think. But here I think it's given slightly more credence, but it also, that you can't help but feel it's a right-wing perspective on this on this guy's ideas, which again is in keeping with the era.
It is definitely kind of, it is quite authentic. It's kind of, that naivety, and it's all a bit silly. And I've put in that, we have a groovy party as well, and a political party with a lesbian, no less, because this is modern Big Finish, and we have to make sure we've got a lesbian in the 70s.
Yeah, you wouldn't have had that in the actual 70s Doctor Who.
No, you wouldn't even, to be fair, you've actually got women in speaking roles who are not Miss something or a wife.
It's very much a Liz Shaw story. The Third Doctor is there and obviously is a part of the plot, and the unit are there, but ultimately it's Liz that is taken prisoner and sort of accused of... And she's not taken prisoner as in, we've got to get her out of the way for a few episodes. She is sort of taken in for questioning, and she is the main focus of how these aliens are going to infiltrate UNIT, not the Doctor.
And it's really quite nicely done. It is... She's the sort of star of that part of the story. Liz is taken. They do that sort of very briefly, that fake out of, we're investigating one of your members, and it's like, is it the Doctor's? No, it's Liz Shaw. It's one of those things that it's like, I wish I hadn't read the back of the cover, because it's fairly obvious who they're investigating. And I think that it gives Daisy Ashford something to get her teeth into as well. It could have so simply been very season 7, very Doctor Who that time, and just been lots of surface with some themes.
Yeah.
Actually, they like, let's give this actor something interesting to do.
I think she really does get something interesting to do. It feels like the Liz Shaw show. I suppose, I mean, I have not actually told you what I think of this story yet. I'm going to disappoint everybody because it's going to make for a less interesting conversation, but I love this. I really, really enjoy it. There's something about the Third Doctor ones that they've managed to capture the era so well. And as you say, I think it's probably because it's all recast. I think it's this type of scripts, the type of music, the type of... Even the production values is a weird thing to say because it's obviously recorded in a modern studio, but it all just feels so era authentic. And I've got used to these versions of the character now. So, like, I've heard them a number of times that I'm on board with them, and I think of them as the Third Doctor and Liz. And also, I wonder, because it's just... this is a weird thing to say, but it's so far away, and to be blunt, that they're pretty much all dead. That it's... I just feel like now is the time. I don't think I would have accepted it in 1999. I don't think I would have accepted it in 2005. But at this point, I'm in my early 40s, and John Pertwee's been dead a long, long time, and he's never coming back. So this is what I like. And out of all the recast stuff, and out of the ranges that I check for regularly from Big Finish, it is the Third Doctor ones.
I can see why, and I will freely admit, so I said I've bought more. I've bought, on my way home this evening, I bought Doctor Who and the Brain Drain, that is its full title, which I enjoy this enough to go, I'm quite prepared to dip into this range again, because I think it's captured the era nicely, but with a bit of a modern twist, but not that can happen in some of these stories by trying to say, let's put the Third Doctor and Liz in a 21st century Doctor Who story at a 21st century pace. It is maybe a little bit too long, but that's what they're going for. They're going for this era. And sound design, the production, it doesn't feel anachronistic as well. Yeah. There's just a lot to really like in it. I think it sags in the middle. It all suffers from sort of episode 5 syndrome in terms of what's happening here. But just thinking on that thing you said about time. So last night we watched, my husband and I watched Spearhead from Space, going through the DVD Blu-ray extras, and they've got a clip of Nicholas Courtney and Caroline John recording the commentary in the year 2000, to which my husband very helpfully turns to me and goes, that was recorded 30 years after Spearhead from Space. And in a few years' time, that commentary will be as old as Spearhead from Space was at that point. And then you're like, I now feel fucking ancient.
But I do think it's what you're saying about it being era appropriate. I think if you don't have the living cast members, putting them in an unusual type of story or unusual environment that is more akin to modern television just makes you so far removed from what this is that you kind of go, well, why not just make something completely different? If I've got Sylvester McCoy and Sophie Aldred in a story that's set in 2025, because it's them doing it, I can buy that enough. And, it's a 45-minute episode with those two on a motorbike up the Shard like Matt Smith did or something. I go, okay, well, there's the Seventh Doctor and Ace doing it. This range needs to take me back to 1970 in order to sell this version of the characters and the actors playing them. So I think, for me, that's why it works.
I think that's the thing. It's a selling point. The selling point isn't just it's a Third Doctor story. It's a Third Doctor season 7 set story. So it's set in that season, set in that era. It's going for a particular vibe. If they'd started, and I have no idea what happens in some of the other season 7 stories, but if they're like, let's take the Doctor off of Earth, let's give him this random adventure for Liz to go off with the TARDIS. It's like, that's not what the series was doing at that point. If I'm picking up a Third Doctor story, or dare I say a First Doctor story, maybe more on that a bit later, you're looking for something specific in that thing. You're looking for it to evoke that era. And it doesn't really interest me. It's like, I'm not going to pick up a Third Doctor box set that doesn't feel like that. Because, as you say, you might as well just go and listen to something else. And at that point, my brain just ran away with me. But
I do get you saying about when you separate. Like, I've done a Tom Baker and Harry one recently, and I quite enjoyed that. But when I first heard, exactly the same as you, when I first heard whether it was The Ark or Revenge of the Cybermen, I was a bit like, oh, well, I'm not buying this Sarah Jane with this older version of Tom Baker. When I listened to a season 11 audio from Big Finish with Tim Trelaw's Third Doctor and Sarah Jane as played by Sadie Miller, it suddenly felt more natural, because I was like, okay, so they're both not the original actors, and suddenly I'm more sold on that than I am with them cross-pollinating. Having said that, I've listened to enough of them now that I can take the mix up a bit more, but I do think they work better as their own thing and not just mix and match.
I think you're right. I think also the problem with Revenge of the Cybermen remake is that was utterly pointless. In terms of that was one of those ones that's like that. It has one of the most brilliant covers. There's like and I think that's one of the very early ones for the recast Sarah and Harry.
I think it was the first one they did with them.
Actually, I think you're right. It might have been. And it was just like, oh, this is really interesting. And then I started listening to that, and it's like, what's the point of this? This is just Revenge of the Cybermen, but not as good.
Yeah, and I think that's a weird way to launch your recasts, because the reason this version of Revenge of the Cybermen wasn't made is because it's shit. And I do think it's an interesting, I like the Lost Stories range for presenting us these things that some of them weren't made because they were too expensive, some of them weren't made for backroom reasons, and some of them weren't made because they weren't very good. So I don't mind if I buy a Lost Story that's shit. I do mind if I buy a Third Doctor adventure or a Seventh Doctor adventure that's shit. And I just think it was a bad idea to introduce them in a not very good story, especially when they're putting out stuff like this that is so like, okay, this is what I want from a Third Doctor Big Finish story.
And it really feels like they're putting the effort in as well. So as I say, there's no returning characters. There's very little back references and continuity in the dialogue. There is possibly a single reference to the Web of Fear. But apart from that, this is a script that doesn't do something that really irked me with the second story, in terms of it wasn't knowing in its dialogue. It's like I said before, it's very old school. It feels like a sort of, you can imagine this story being done back in the sort of early noughties, maybe not this type of story, but this type of production. It felt like when I was listening to those tapes, the sort of soundscape, the actors, the performances felt, as I say, it felt quite old school. And that's what appealed to me. As I say, I'm a fan in my 40s. So if something kind of makes me go, oh, this reminds me of listening to Spectre of Lanyon more because it has a similar vibe, a similar feel to it, then it's doing something right. The other advantage of this was that even though it's 7 episodes long, the episodes are, I think, mostly quite short. So it gives it a nice pace, even though it is a bit long. It sags a little in the middle. So most of these episodes are just over 20 minutes long. So it doesn't hang around. So, when I re-listened to this, I managed to do it on my commute to work and back. It's still the best part of 3 hours, but it didn't feel like 3 hours. It moves along at quite a pace. That I'm just looking through my notes, and it's like I've just been distracted by the fact that the living weapon is called Sylvia, and I don't know why, but I felt that I had to make a note of that.
Is it any worse than Tom Tit?
Tom Tit, I am surprised they got away with. I am more surprised that when they did the behind the sofa on the Blu-ray, not one person on that sofa made a comment about Tom Tit at all. But anyway, I digress.
How do we feel units are used in this? Because we've got quite the sort of typical setup of someone's interested in unit, and we don't have the full unit fam at this point. It's, it's the Brigadier and it's Liz Shaw, and that's kind of all you need. But do we feel like it's a representative of unit? Are we happy with their involvement in the story?
Well, this is the point when units are competent. This is before they start bringing in Yates and Benton. That's the other advantage of setting it sort of early to mid season 7, is that they've got where's Sergeant Benton? Why haven't we cast John Levine to pop up? You do get Captain Munro's mentioned. I think he's heard over a radio. He's one of the revolving door of captains from season 7, so that was quite a nice touch. But I felt this, and the Brigadier as well, he's not a buffoon, he's actually quite intelligent. He has a thing about the more that they hide, the more they give themselves away. So there's this, this is an intelligent Brigadier. It's not, splendid chaps fellow from sort of seasons 10 and 11 with his ridiculous haircut. So I think Unit come out of this really well, and it's still got that grounded feeling that season 7 has. And this is a proper military organization that feels responsible. They're combing the woods looking for the Mercurian, whatever it was, the Doctor saw. They feel very effective. It felt like a good unit story. But it's not overdone as well. I think the only downside is that apart from the Brigadier, there's not many speaking unit parts. So he's just barking orders at sound effects.
Yeah. But that's just because they don't have enough cast. I think that they're limited to 8 cast for most Big Finish stories, but they've all got to double up. How do you feel about Eddie Robson's script? Because obviously Eddie has written lots and lots of Doctor Who, and you mentioned it's sagging a little in the middle. But does it come to a satisfactory conclusion? Like, are you happy with what he does?
I think it is a good script. I think, as I said, what I like is in the dialogue and in the plotting, even though we go to a vault full of alien tech or anything, the temptation to, it's a Cyberman spaceship, or there's none of that. Apart from, there was one reference to Web of Fear. It's not full of continuity references, and say you're in a vault of unit tech or alien tech, the temptation to do that must have been there. But they don't. And the dialogue is certainly nothing that stood out to me in terms of, we've got the Third Doctor repeating lines that he says on the television because, that's what some writers do. And so that was really nice. So it felt the dialogue felt quite natural. It flowed quite nicely. The bit that I wasn't sure that worked was some of the stuff at the end. I felt like all of a sudden they had to do quite a bit of exposition towards the end to kind of explain, well, this is why that happened and that's why that happened. And the final scene, I felt like they were trying to do, we're doing our Doctor and the Silurians kind of, sort of twist ending so the whole crux of the story is, did Liz Shaw give away secret plans to her university friends? And it's revealed right at the end that actually she did. Yeah. And then there's kind of this slightly moral conversation with the Doctor where it's like, did I do the right thing? It's like, well, I think you probably did. And that's where it ends, on that kind of moral point of she did the wrong thing, but for the right reasons. But that was one of those plot points going, does that match up with what been covered before? And the explanation as to why why she was arrested and taken is because she'd seen the location of the secret vault in her memories, and they wanted, and some of that, I was like, oh, that's why they did it. It didn't quite gel, some of the explanations at the end, which was a bit of a shame. And in fact, if they hadn't put some of those things in, it would just been some unexplained mysteries, and it probably would have been fine. You wouldn't pay too much attention to it. But I felt with that final scene, there was we need to have the moral twist at the end, and the Doctor and Liz are, it's all a bit more grey. Didn't quite work for me, that one bit. But on the whole, I thought this was a really good script, and it's Eddie Robson who usually does a good job as well. There are some writers who are usually really reliable. I think you see a name on a story and that's like, this is probably going to work.
Yeah, and I think it does. And for me, as I said, it's the character stuff with Liz that he delves into. And it's not like, it doesn't go too far with Liz and sort of do a big story about her past or something like that, but it delves into bits of her past. And I think the most interesting thing is the stuff she talks about, her fear of war. And of course she is part of that post-war generation where her parents fought in the wars, that her parents, their life would have been probably 2 world wars, and there was everybody waiting for another one, whether it's the backdrop of the Cold War or something else. And so they just kind of assumed it would happen, and so that fear really sort of was looming over her head. And I just like how that's all woven into this story, and it doesn't make her a Mike Yates style traitor or anything like that, but it just adds a few more shades of grey to Liz's character that I like.
And what I did like is that the climax where Liz talks the alien superweapon down, sharing her fears of war, it's Liz that drives the conclusion to the story, and she's the one who saves the day, and that's really good. I think if Pertwee was still alive, or if he was alive, he'd be bloody ancient. But I think you said this on when you were talking about the River Song set that had the Third Doctor, is that with these recasts, you can get the characters to do things that probably, the Third Doctor, John Pertwee, would never have allowed them to do a script where he played second fiddle to anybody. Yeah. So by having the recasts, you can do certain things with the characters that probably the original actors would have never, they would have thrown the script out the window saying, I'm not doing that because I'm the bloody star of the show. These stories allow the companions to take center stage, get the bit of character development. As you say, it's not character development it takes over the story and the tragic backstories or lots of high emotion and drama. It's the character that we kind of know and recognize put into this situation. Nothing that Liz does in this story feels forced or anything that Caroline John's Liz wouldn't have done. You can totally buy that she probably would have done the moral thing.
Yeah.
So it felt very true to the character, just giving her another layer. I think for me, when people talk about emotion and emotional development in dramas, they usually mean crying a lot. And that's not the only emotion that you can have in drama. You can have concern about warfare. You can have concern about weapons and the morality of arms sales, which is another theme in this story as well, and how that generates the fear of World War III, which, is still going on now. So I think it adds a layer of character to Liz that we might not have had in 1970, but it doesn't feel like a million miles removed of what we know about the character.
Yeah, agreed. I just in general am a bit in awe of this range of being able to recapture the era so perfectly. I mentioned this to Joe Ford and Mark Rawlins, his partner, and Mark said there has never been a Duff Liz Shaw story at Big Finish, which I think is really interesting. I've not heard them all, but I will start to track more of them down because I had a great time with it.
I as I said, I've already tracked one down, and I will happily track down, I think The Annihilators is another one which has got, it's a chance to sample the recast Second Doctor with, is it Michael Troughton playing him, which I haven't, he's the only one I've not heard yet. And when I was picking these stories, it was, I'm only picking 2. So it's like, is it going to be a First Doctor story or a Second Doctor story? And so, I'm going to go for a First Doctor story because that might be a bit more interesting.
Agreed. Is there anything else you want to say on Intelligence for War before we move on to your second choice?
No, I think that's kind of captured it's an enjoyable story. I think it's the story that's made me rethink my sort of anti-Big Finish. I'm no longer buying these stance. I'm looking at, I would listen to more of this range, and it's opened me up to going, well, maybe I'll try some of the other things that they're putting out. Maybe ones that are less reliant on crazy ideas or, story ideas generated by throwing darts at a board. I think that was what I liked about this, was it was its own thing, and it wasn't trading off, what can we put on a cover that will make people squee.
It's just good old-fashioned Doctor Who, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It's got a beginning, a middle, and an end. All the characters do what they normally do. There's a little bit of embellishment and flourish because it is 2023 at this point, not 1970. And it's just a great listen. The one thing I forgot to say, which I must say, is there is a moment that really had me howling, and it's Tim Treloar, who is obviously doing an impression of John Pertwee's Third Doctor, doing an impression of a Cockney postman, but he does it in a way that it feels like John Pertwee doing the impression, like it's exactly how Pertwee would do it, not how Tim Treloar would do it.
I actually did, yes, I even wrote that down. It's like the Doctor is doing some silly voices in a very Pertwee style, and that was I thought that was really good. And the fact they must, having done this for 10 years, best part 10 years, they know what they can give Tim Treloar to do that captures the essence. And that's the thing, I think he captures the essence of the Third Doctor. He doesn't sound like him all the time, but he gets the character, he gets the arrogance, but the humility, the warmth. He has the Doctor and Liz in this, there's a warmth between them. You can buy these two being really good friends. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to kind of diving into more of these.
Excellent. So we must rate it. Is it a clanger, a banger, or an average meander?
It's a definite banger.
Excellent.
And after, having two absolute clangers when we did the Blake 7, it was really nice to have a story that was good.
Well, it's a banger from me too.
Too hot for TV.
The next thing we're going to look at is Fugitive of the Daleks. It was released on the 23rd of January 2024 and recorded 8th to the 10th of August 2023. It was written by Jonathan Morris, directed by Nicholas Briggs, produced by Mark Wright. News at the time. Not a huge amount, just that Shooty's first season was about to launch, so there was a build-up to that, and it was announced that the Celestial Toymaker was getting animated. Other releases from BBC Audio, we had Escape the Daleks. From Big Finish, we had The Chaos Cascade, The Battle of Giants Causeway, and Torchwood Pop It. From BBC Books, we had the paperbacks of The Star Beast, Wild Blue Yonder and The Giggle, and a hardback of The Church of Ruby Road. And the comic strip was Mankopolis, featuring the 15th Doctor and Ruby. So again, we are very, very recent. I've not heard any... the Battle of Giants Causeway I have heard. It's... when they bring back Kerry's, so it's the 8th Doctor, Kerry's and Charlie, and it's great fun. It reminds you just of those early 8th Doctor stories.
I kept meaning to pick that one up because it's like that was the era that I was properly into Big Finish, and they've brought back the single releases as well. So it's no longer, oh Christ, I've got to spend 25-30 quid for one story. That was always the thing with some of the box sets. It's like, the 9th Doctor meets Bernice, but you've got to buy the box set with the other two stories. So that used to always put me off. So the fact they do seem to be shifting back to single releases pleases me, because it means I might be more likely to sample and pick things up.
Too hot for TV.
Vicky, reunited with the TARDIS after years away, finds the Doctor unwell and pilots the ship to Perpetuity Station, where they encounter 3 immortal robot survivors of a space plague. When the Doctor refuses to help them escape, they imprison him, but Vicky discovers their robotic nature just as the Daleks arrive. The Doctor and Vicky escape and are pushed across time to various locations, including a primitive world, the Battle of Little Bighorn, and the glass moon of Vitros, where Vicky learns the Doctor is actually a robot duplicate created by the Daleks. Attempting to find the real Doctor, she opens a locked door in the TARDIS and discovers Dodo, who accidentally reactivated the robot Doctor. As the Daleks pursue them, the real Doctor, disguised as the Dalek Supreme, after being displaced in time, uses their time machine to find Vicky and stop his duplicate, who has become unstable and plans to alter history by killing scientists at the 1911 Solvay conference. Vicky persuades the robot doctor to deactivate himself, and the real doctor sets the Daleks' time machine on a course for Skaro before returning Vicky home and sending the reformed robot doctor to live a peaceful life as the Abbot of Amboise, while Dodo forgets their adventure as the time tracks reset.
Too hot for TV.
Why did you pick this?
Well, in the same way that Intelligence for War seemed to get some, positive reviews when it came out, so did this one. And a lot of people seem to talk...
raved about it.
They raved about it. What the fuck were they on? I have listened to this twice.
God help you.
And the first time through, I thought it started off interestingly. This is my first experience of the Stephen Noonan Doctor.
Yeah, mine too.
And there are times I think he's actually very good. When it's a quiet moment, when he's doing some of the more emotional bits, particularly between him and Maureen O'Brien, I think those are the best bits of this. The other bits when he's shouting or whatever, not as good. But as this story went on, it got somewhere between what the hell is going on and to the point that I was kind of like, did Jonathan Morris lose a bet? It's a story that relies on its twists, and there are a lot of them.
There are.
And it's fair to say it's not just... So is it a sequel to The Chase? Well, it's a sequel to The Chase. It's a sequel to The Mythmakers. It's a sequel to The Dalek Master Plan. It's a sequel to The Three Doctors.
Yeah.
It's a prequel to The Massacre. And there's just a point where it's like, this is just... The more it layers on, the more it's just going, this is getting silly.
So the thing is, Jonathan Morris is a great writer of Doctor Who. I love a lot of Jonathan Morris's work. He wrote The Tomorrow Windows, which is a fantastic book. And you can do these weird... Festival Death, I believe, is quite highly regarded. And so you can do these weird sort of all-knowing, nudge-nudge, wink-wink versions of Doctor Who. I'm thinking... I mean, not Jonathan Morris, but I'm thinking something like The One Doctor, where there's a lot of in-gags, but they work because it's very, very funny. This is everything I hate about Big Finish rolled into one.
Yeah, that's exactly what I felt in terms of it's so knowing, it's so aware of itself, and it's doing the two things that really started to really grate with me. One is dropping in lines from practically every First Doctor story. So you've got they lift the line fluff from the smugglers, where it's like, you see that scanner up there? I call that the scan. Almost verbatim, just dropped into the script.
Yeah.
They have this old body's wearing a bit thin, appears at all. So there's a lot of that, and that starts to get a bit like, come on, some original dialogue.
And it has to, like, for me, this could work if it was funny, but I don't think it's witty enough or funny enough to be. It's knowing, but it there's something about it where it's like it needed another draft of somebody just going, no, if you're going to do this sort of Doctor Who the pastiche, you really need to nail it, and everything needs to be almost laugh out loud funny. You're sort of on the Curse of Fatal Death level to try and make it work, but it just doesn't for me.
It doesn't. And the other bit, yeah, and again, in the same way, if I had a pound for every time that someone writes a first or second Doctor story and they make some reference to I need some sort of sonic tool. It's like, okay, the number of books, and certainly I've seen that more than once. It's like, okay, we get it. The Doctor hasn't got a sonic screwdriver. He's going to invent one. We don't need that anymore. The weird thing is, this is a First Doctor and Dodo story, with Vicky as obviously special guest star.
Old Vicky.
Dodo's on the cover, but you could be mistaken for kind of thinking, and I don't think anyone's ever asked this question before, but where the hell is Dodo? She is absent for pretty much for the first 4 of 6 episodes.
Well, she's locked in a cupboard and doesn't bother to scream out. Whenever anybody goes past, she bangs on the door and can obviously hear something's happening the other side, but at no point does she go, "Hello, I'm trapped in here. Could somebody help me?"
And I think that one of the good things about that, Maureen O'Brien, I think, gives a really good performance in this. I think she's absolutely, every time, she plays the emotion well. You can buy, this is a Vicky who's been living in Troy or wherever it is for 40, 50, 60 years and is feeling lost and sad because her husband has died and she doesn't know what to do. And the TARDIS, she does all of those scenes really well. And when she's doing some of those quiet moments with the Doctor, when they're reunited both times, that works really well.
Agreed. That stuff, but it's few and far between.
And unfortunately, you mentioned the comedy, and it's like, what point am I going to mention? There is a sequence in episode 4, which is quite possibly one of the least funny comedy bits of Doctor Who ever written and performed. And clearly it's like, oh, we're going to do a comedy sequence where some builders think that they've smashed a police box, and then it appears again, and then their boss comes, and it's got this horrible comedy music going on.
Yeah.
Really broad performances performing chronically unfunny dialogue. And it goes on forever.
It's trying to be that moment in the chase with Peter Purvis's other character, Morton Dill, or it's trying to be the Feast of Stephen. But it feels so weird and out of place. And it's got that weird shit music, as you say, that's sort of plinky plonky, but it's not era appropriate. It's like it sounds like synthesizers trying to do era appropriate music. And I think that some of the other little things that jar with me are things like that. It's like, oh, you've got one Dalek that's sort of got a voice like the stupid Dalek in The Chase, fine, era appropriate. But then the other one sounds like a new series Dalek, and the Daleks all make those new series Dalek sort of gliding sounds as well.
And they've got the eye stick movement sounds as well. Yeah. But I was thinking, somebody shared on Facebook earlier, it was a dialogue from the Mutant Phase. And I remember when the Mutant Phase came out, 99, 2000, that they go back to the Dalek invasion of Earth period. And I think it's still Nicholas Briggs. It would have been Nicholas Briggs at that point, because I know they actually had another Dalek voice to begin with. There was another actor. They do the Dalek voices for the invasion of Earth authentic to that story. Because I remember when that first came on going, oh my God, they've gone to the effort of doing it properly. And here, apart from the thick Dalek, they're just new series voices. And that's a real shame, because they could have gone for either Chase style or Master Plan style. Probably would have been more authentic to where the Daleks come from.
Yeah.
But it's like they just sound like your normal Daleks.
And then we cycle through the cliches of the era. We land on a space station with some people who are secretly robots. We go to some caves with some savages, a really fantastical alien planet made of glass. And all of those things are great, and I love seeing them in 60s Doctor Who. And I would love to see those things in an authentic version of this, but it's like, every time the TARDIS lands somewhere, I'm just like, why the fuck has it landed here? Like, how is this moving the story on? It's not. It's to roll from one cliche to another and sort of knowingly wink to the audience going, wasn't old Doctor Who quaint and funny?
There's a whole bit where they meet Custer, and they've got the build-up to the Battle of Little Bighorn, which in itself would be a really good historical story. There's a whole seam of stuff they could mine there. But they just turn up, have a bit of a chat, run around a little bit and leave. And okay, that's very authentic to the Chase. But it just, at least with the Chase, there's some genuine humour in it. There's the visuals, but for the wrong reasons, because the Chase is pretty poor in place. I love the Chase. I think the Chase is just one of the most fun Doctor Who adventures ever, but also, God, it's shoddy.
Yeah, but also it's not trying to be shoddy. It just is, and that's why we love it. Like, it's a lot of fun, and you kind of laugh along with it at the mistakes it's made, because Richard Martin isn't fantastic at directing in-studio stuff. But here, it's a difficult idea to sell a pastiche on that on audio as it is. Like, on television, maybe they would have had more fun, but it just, I just cannot. Just what were they thinking?
And there's just lots of bits. So obviously the first big twist is that the Doctor who Vicky encounters is not the Doctor, but is the robot from the chase who survived and somehow got into the TARDIS, which is never explained because he never had a key, and the TARDIS is locked because it's clearly established in the chase the TARDIS is locked because Vicky can't get in. Anyway, I digress. And it's been unconscious or asleep for a bit. Then the First Doctor is taken off by the Time Lords for the three Doctors, and Dodo panics and does something to the console that causes the robot to wake up, and he now thinks he's the Doctor. And at what point does someone say, you know what would be a really good idea for a story? What happened to the robot from the chase? And that's what it's like. Either was there a drinking competition? Like I said, was there a bet? There's just this weird thing of who came up with the idea of let's do a chase sequel, but not as good.
But also, I think that story, if it works if you've got William Hartnell, which obviously you don't, or you're doing it in a novel where you can't tell. But I'm already taken out of this by Stephen Noonan's performance as the Doctor, be it as the robot Doctor or the real Doctor.
Yeah, I remember when he got cast and they released was a trailer or something, and it got ripped apart by a lot of fandom saying he doesn't sound like him, he doesn't have the personality wasn't coming across, and I think he plays some of the quiet moments quite well.
Yeah, and he gets some of the hms and ha's right, but every time he shouts, I'm like, I don't know who that is.
The problem with the hms I find is I'd be interested to know, are they scripted or is he putting them in? Because the thing when Hartnell's doing it, they're not scripted. That's just him. That's part of his mannerisms and his performance. But when this isn't just Stephen Noonan, it's when David Bradley does it, when other actors are doing the First Doctor, the hms feel very scripted. Yeah. And it's hard to get away with it. And when this is very light on cast or light on regular characters, it's really the Doctor and Vicky and Dodo when she finally turns up. So there's a lot of the First Doctor in this. So if he's not doing it for you, you're in trouble because there's a lot of him. There's two of him. Because eventually at the end of episode 5, when the Doctor finally joins the story, and I thought, is he going to play it slightly differently? Is he going to be less shouty? Is that just going to be a trait of the robot? Not really. He starts doing pretty much the same performance.
I'm told that he improves over the course of them, but it didn't work for me. I can take David Bradley's version because it's a really good actor doing their own take on the character. It's not that much of an emulation of Hartnell, but this I couldn't get on board with. And I believe, Stephen Noonan is a huge Doctor Who fan and, he's a professional actor, but this version in this story just did not float my boat. And I really wanted him to, because Tim Treloar has sold me as the third Doctor, and much like you, sold me that these parts can be recast well. But it just didn't happen for me here, unfortunately.
No, it's not inspiring me to pick up any more of these sets. If there's one of the other ones in a sale, maybe might be tempted, but it would have to be a fairly hefty sale. Because the other thing, recast actors. Obviously, this is the first time listening to Lauren Cornelius as Dodo, and that's an interesting one because I don't know who this character was, but that's not Dodo. It really didn't. I mean, I don't think she does a bad performance. I think she gives. She delivers what the script requires of her. But is this the Dodo we know and love?
I mean, I don't know how well characterized Dodo is in the classic series, to be perfectly honest. So I feel like she's got a bit more license to go a little bit further with the performance. But yeah, you're right. It could just be any northern 20-something woman.
Exactly. There's a point, because obviously this is set just between Savages and War Machines, and at no point with her performance did I think, yeah, this is the character who's going to step out of the TARDIS in London in the War Machines. As I said, yeah, maybe I'm being contradictory, going, but actors need to put their own stamp on it, but it still needs to be recognisably the same character. She's sassy, maybe not sassy, cheeky in a way that Dodo really wasn't. So I just didn't think that it captured the character terribly well. It's not a great story, but then you get to episode 5. And episode 5 spends about 15 to 20 minutes just doing exposition and just saying, right, we're now going to explain how all this came about, and there's flashbacks, and you can feel the script working at that point, and it doesn't feel like it's flowing. It's not coming out of the story. It's Dodo and Vicky need to stop and have a chat and explain who they are, and it's like it grinds the story to an absolute halt. And then I think the robot has a flashback and it just, for a story that's already feeling a bit long, and actually at 6 episodes, this is longer than Intelligence for War.
Yeah. And my notes for the last episode simply read, I have lost all goodwill by this point. Especially when it's revealed where the Doctor is and he's been hidden in a fucking Dalek the entire time.
Yep. Somebody's thought this would be a great twist. And again, does he rise out of the casing? Oh no, he's quoting the Space Museum while doing it because, you can't help. How dare we think of some original lines to give the Doctor while he's doing it? It does feel like if we put in lines from the First Doctor era, that's when people will buy him as the First Doctor. Going, I think it does the opposite. It really reminds you that's like, this is a pastiche.
I was listening to the Lost Stories Farewell to Great Macedon today because it's for a future podcast, and it's William Russell doing a dramatic reading of the story with some acting. But William Russell's First Doctor is so much more believable because, I mean, obviously he knew him, so he could pick up the nuances of the performance. But because he's not stopping to and ha, and he's not quoting any of your famous lines from different stories, he's just giving it his best performance that he can to sound a bit like William Hartnell. And it's not perfect, but it doesn't have to be because of the context of what he's doing. And then I'm pulled back into this and I'm just like, who is this person? It's not the First Doctor.
It's not and it's also helped that Farewell Great Macedon is a far superior script as well.
Certainly, I'm only 2 episodes in, but it seems to be so far.
I've not listened to that for a very long time because that was previewed in Doctor Who magazine. They did a whole feature on it before even the Big Finish was probably even a thing. So when they adapted it, it was like, this is brilliant. And that's captures the era, captures the characters really well. And if I want to say, well, I'm going to listen to a First Doctor story, as we were saying before, it's like if you want to listen to a Third Doctor, I'm more likely to pick up some of the Lost Stories because they really do capture more of the era. They were written at the time. This doesn't capture the era of the 60s at all. You've got the TARDIS that the kind of doesn't feel like it's completely out of control because the telepathic circuits.
Yeah.
By the time you get to the final episode, I was getting to the similar point, more so on the re-listen. I think it really did not stand up to going back.
And everybody has to get temporal amnesia at the end to forget it. It doesn't fit in with the canon. And I know Big Finish do things like that a lot, but sometimes I'm just like, maybe just don't. Just don't make these characters meet.
You know how we wanted to do this story and we've got Dodo and she meets the Daleks and do you think someone went towards the end going, oh, hang on, there's that line in the War Machines where she's like, I don't know what the Daleks are. And it's like, we'll cover it with a line. We'll just put some temporal amnesia in. It's fine. The problem with that is because knowing who's producing these, you know that's probably good. Dodo hasn't met the Daleks. It's really well established. So it's going to be undone or forgotten or done. Something's going to happen.
Yeah.
And when it comes, it's like you could have done something interesting there. You could have done something clever, but it's almost hand waved away in terms of, oh, you'll probably not remember it.
Yeah.
And that's it.
It's also compounded by the fact that the only original member of the cast that is there is Vicky. And I think there's a really good story to be told with Vicky meeting the Doctor again, be it the First Doctor or a different one, and discussing what it's like to be someone from space who's left in who's left in ancient Greece or whatever it is. It's like that is a really good story, and it just seems to be, while there are those quieter moments that are nice, it's just sort of squandered here, I think.
It's lost in it, and they make this decision. There's a really lovely moment between the Doctor and Vicky right at the end where they say goodbye to each other, and she says thank you to him and he says thank you to her, and that would have been a really nice end to the story. However, going off this script and where they've been with it, we're not done with that. So it's like, we've got the robot, we need to dump him somewhere, let's dump him in France. And he's now, I'm the Abbot of Amboise. And at that point going, really? Are we doing this? Are we actually... One, we're explaining why the Abbot looks like the Doctor, and which is just not needed. The fact that he's a robot, and he's a Dalek robot that, let's not forget, the Abbot is brutally murdered and left bloodied in the street. So...
Well, hang on. Is he left before the massacre or after the massacre?
I think it's... Good point. I think it's meant to be before.
Right.
Because the Abbot is last seen dead in the gutter.
Yeah.
And I think they're trying to suggest that he's the new Abbot. So unless they're saying he's just, look, you've come back from Paris and you look exactly the same. I definitely took it to be the Abbot of Amboise, who looks like the First Doctor, is actually the robot from the chase.
Interesting. I don't know. I thought it was afterwards, and they just sort of either way, it's fucking with the massacre. Don't do that, guys. But write in, people listening, and tell us which one you think it is. And maybe we weren't paying attention by that point, or maybe the script isn't clear.
I mean, maybe we just zoned out. I mean, the fact that you've got the Doctor steering his little time eddy from the three Doctors through space and time. The bit, and I've commented this on a podcast recently, that when Vicky's Dodo says, "Where's Stephen gone?" and it's he's a king, and it's like, why is Stephen suddenly a king? He's not a king in the Savages. When he leaves, he's their leader, but all of a sudden. I think because Peter Purvis says in interviews he left to be a king, going, Peter, that's not what happened. But no, you've decided you're a king. And now they've kind of put it in the script as well. It's like, stop making him a king. He's not a king.
No, he's a leader of a group of people. He's a leader of a society. But
he's made himself king. That sounds about right. But yeah, it's just messy and layering on yet another sequel, yet another continuation. It just gets crowded, and you've got all that stuff in this sort of 5th and 6th episodes. It makes you forget, we had all the stuff with Custer and on the space station in the first 2 or 3 episodes. It's like it bears no relation, and I was expecting something really clever to happen.
Yeah,
this is a Jonathan Morris script. He wrote Anacrophobia, which for me is one of the best 8th Doctor novels, because it has a ridiculously clever twist at the end, and a time travel twist, which is I thought was really satisfying. So I was kind of expecting something bigger and grander, which we didn't get. And so I just came away going, I'm really glad that's over.
Yeah. And the humour isn't like the humour of someone like Dennis Spooner, so it doesn't quite work. And Johnny Morris is a funny writer as well, but it's just not funny here. I feel like I'm repeating myself a lot here, but all I can say is I just don't think it works on any level. And this is... For me, this is an example of everything that Big Finish, or not doing wrong because people clearly buy them, but everything that I dislike about Big Finish and the sort of stuff that would turn me off of release are present in this release.
There are certain things that if I see that they're doing, so as I've mentioned, the big cast mashups or sequels to things or continuity heavy. I mean, this is the word is fanwank. This is such a fanwanky story. If I'd known it was going to be like this, I probably wouldn't have picked it. But then it's one of those that a lot of the twists I didn't know. I didn't know that it was going to be the robot. I didn't know that the Doctor was hiding in a Dalek for 5 episodes. So it was genuinely surprising, but not in a way that I enjoyed. And it's not one when you listen to it back going, oh, those twists are really rewarding or interesting. It's just, let's come up with something really batshit. And then the robot goes rogue at the end because he's evil for reasons, because the script says he's evil again. I think you said it earlier, it feels like it needed another draft or two to really kind of iron it out. And maybe, as happened on television, it's like, maybe there was lots of stuff going on. It's like, it's Johnny Morris, we don't need to edit his scripts too much, it'll be fine. It's like, actually, this needed a bit of work. I did read, I was trying to just remind myself a couple of bits, so I was on TARDIS Wiki, and according to that, Johnny Morris didn't want Dodo's presence in the story revealed in the publicity because it ruins one of the twists. And it's like, well, it wouldn't have improved it, but you wouldn't have spent 4 episodes going, it's Dodo locked in there, isn't it?
Yeah, very true. But you can't hide that. That doesn't, as you say, it doesn't make it a better script as a result. It just keeps one of the cliffhangers at bay. So it's all, I mean, I can't keep repeating myself like this fucking story does. So it just leaves me to ask you whether there's anything else that we've not discussed on this one that you want to talk about.
I think with some of these twists, I think someone somewhere thought they're going to love this. They're going to love that it's the robot from the chase. And they did
love it.
And again, I repeat, why?
Joe Ford thought this was brilliant, and I love Joe, and we agree about so much and disagree about quite a lot too. But he was like, it's amazing. I was like, so Intelligence for War, I listened to all in one day, not all at the same time. I was traveling around and stuff, and this I listened to an episode a day, and even that was too much in terms of how much I had to put myself through for this story.
This got me through a train trip to Manchester, and it's like you start off and it's like, this isn't bad, and then gradually just starts to unravel very quick. It's pretty much as soon as Doctor Who turns up and starts shouting at everything. Maybe Noonan gets better. I don't know. I mean, I don't think there's been too many box sets after this. I think there's been the one with Stephen coming back, because we've got to bring back a old companion again and see what they've been getting up to, because they haven't done that before. And the weird thing with this one was with the cover. It might just be the artistic style or something, but I thought Vicky looked possessed or something bad wolfy was going on. But no, she's just pointing at a Dalek and looking a bit distressed.
This range has an interesting set of sort of more traditional illustrations as covers, which, I'm here for. I like that Big Finish are changing up the designs. I will give Noonan the benefit of the doubt and check out some of his later releases, whether it's that Stephen one or a different one. I mean, if there's a historical box set, I'm there for it. I love a Harnell historical, so I'll show up for that any day. But unfortunately, based on the merits of this, I'm not sold.
Yeah, I'm not against it. I think I've heard, again, it does make me wary because I heard similar things, possibly also from Joe as well, in terms of this being amazing. And people said the same thing about Death World, and I'm not sold on whether or not I want to pick up that yet, because the things I've heard is, they've lifted dialogue from the 3 Doctors and everything. It's like, that's not what I'm looking for in these stories. I'm looking for original, not pastiches, and not... The fans are buying these things anyway. You don't need to shoehorn in, go, our new 3rd Doctor's repeated a line from Carnival of Monsters. Isn't it amazing? It's like, no, it's not. It just reminds you that it's somebody else playing the role.
I mean, and look, if you like this, like Joe does, I'm very happy for you.
He's going to send us abuse for this, isn't he?
Yes, absolutely.
We deserve it.
So, is it a clanger, a banger, or an average meander?
This is a tough one. Of course, it's a clanger. It's. I'm with you. It sums up. I say I stepped away from Big Finish, and like I say, I've hovered on the fringes. If I just listened to this story, I wouldn't be thinking of buying anything else. It'd be like, is this is this what Big Finish is doing now, this type of story? I'm really glad that I listened to the other one as well, because like, that's the sort of thing that I want. That's what I always wanted from Big Finish. Sometimes, yes, it was nice if they brought a character back or something, but it was always kind of when they did stuff that was original and and really captured the era where they were set. This did not do that.
Agreed. It's a clanger for me too. I really wanted to like it because I'm a big Hartnell fan, and I don't need it to be William Hartnell. Like, if it captures the era well enough for me, then I'm there. But this did not do it, so a clanger from me.
Too hot for TV.
So, if people want to find you on the internet, where can they find you?
Well, I am currently, at time of recording, I am still on Twitter. I've always said that I'm not about to quit and be bullied off yet, but there's so few of us left. So I'm still at Pi1883 on Twitter. I'm on Blue Sky as David GP. I'm on YouTube, where I'm starting up putting out videos again after a bit of a break. But generally, if you find me on one bit of social media, I'm kind of there. I'm on most of the sites somewhere, usually banging on about missing episodes of Doctor Who, one form or another, but people seem to like it.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It was an absolute pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much. And it's been fascinating revisiting the world of Big Finish. I'm open to maybe trying some of these stories again. So something good has come of it.
Amazing. Next time, I'll be joined by Pete Lambert, and we'll be talking about 2 Mel Big Finish stories. First up, it's Bang Bang a Boom, featuring the 7th Doctor and a visit to the Interstellar Song Contest. Then it's The Juggernauts, featuring the 6th Doctor, Davros, and the Daleks. Well, until next time, I've been Dylan.
And I've been David.
And this has been Doctor Who, Too Hot for TV.
Too hot for TV.
As I was saying on the previous one, the Battle of Giant's Causeway was just a bit of solid Doctor Who from an era I remember very fondly, and it was nice to be with those characters where they were just fighting some Sontarans and some Retons, and it's like, that's all I need sometimes.
What more can you ask for? Just a nice, simple story.
Yeah. So, speaking of nice, simple stories, we move on to Fugitive of the Daleks.